As the old joke went, two men walked into a bar. But the two men were no joke. Dressed casually in jeans and collared shirts, their imposing figures made other patrons take note. Their good looks made a group of women at a corner booth waggle their eyebrows at each other. One even let out a woot woot. Gage just hoped no one recognized them. It had been a year since that morning when Gage found their parents. A year since Leach dropped them off at roaming headquarters, a sleek building that hid a wealth of secrets under the guise of the nonprofit political group America Now. A year since enigmatic Director Winters had taken them in. They'd been in forced lockdown for the first 3 months after their arrival, but they were kept busy with fighting and weapons training. Luckily for them, their athletic ability paid off. Gage and Cooper learned a lot that first year. They learned they weren't as tough as they thought, and they learned that monsters were real. "Bachelorette party," Cooper said, smiling at the group of ladies wearing sashes and light-up tiaras. Gage and Cooper made their way up to the bar. A haze filled the dim room, and the smell of stale beer wafted through the air. Old rock and roll songs played on the digital jukebox. In the corner, decorated with photos of regular patrons, a rowdy group, comprising 3 men and 2 women, picked up their mugs and slammed their drinks. Laughter peeled from their beer-slicked lips. Gage and Cooper took stock of the entire bar, with no one the wiser. As the bartender approached, she scrutinized Gage and Cooper. Cooper smiled. "2 bottles of your finest brewski," he said, placing a $20 bill on the bar. The bartender paused for a beat, studying Cooper's face. Deciding he passed for 21, she reached for the money. But then Gage stopped her. He put his hand up. "Make that 2 Cokes." He gave Cooper a look and shook his head. Gage wasn't worried about the underage part, but for what they were about to do, he needed his brother focused. The woman came back with 2 glasses of soda. "Thanks much," Cooper said, prominently displaying his dimples. The woman smiled back and turned to help another customer. "Wait for it," Cooper said to Gage, and they both watched as the woman, talking to her next customer, glanced at Cooper and gave him another grin. "Focus, Cooper." Gage grabbed his glass and took a drink, turning to watch the rest of the room. "What? I can have a little fun. Never close a door before you open it. That's what I always say." Cooper kept an eye on the bartender. "That doesn't even make sense," Gage said, raising an eyebrow at his brother. "I'm just saying," Cooper shrugged, smiling again at the bartender, who kept her eye on him. He grabbed his Coke and gulped it down in one drink, hoping to wave the bartender back for a refill. "How do you want to do this?" Gage reached back and set his glass down, while keeping a watchful eye on the room. "How about I work the bartender for information, and you go do your thing?" Cooper pushed his empty glass forward. "Coop!" Gage turned toward his brother and snapped his fingers. "I said focus." Cooper turned and gave his attention to his brother. Okay, Cooper sighed. "Fine. How do you see this going?" Gage shrugged. "I guess we just go over there?" Cooper turned and took a step away from the bar. "Great plan, bro. Very intricate. You're nearly a mastermind." Gage ran his hands down the front of his shirt, smoothing invisible wrinkles. He stepped forward, leading the way to the loud group in the corner. Cooper walked behind, but kept turning back and looking at the bartender, who watched him walk away. "She's totally checking out my butt," Cooper whispered out of the corner of his mouth. Gage stopped and put his hand out. Cooper ran into his brother's outstretched arm. "Remember, Coop, do not make a scene. We don't want any norms witnessing anything they shouldn't." "Me? Scene? Come on, Gage. You know me better than that." Cooper turned back and shot a crooked grin and a wink to the bartender. Gage ignored him and made his way over to the table, straightening his shoulders. "Excuse me," Gage cleared his throat. The group went quiet. "How are you all doing tonight?" The men and women at the table stared at Gage. "Well, we were wondering if we could ask you some questions." A nonverbal cue seemed to pass through the group. "Why? Are you the police?" A mean and beefy-looking man asked. Cooper shook his head, nudging his brother aside. "Sorry, folks. My brother can be all business. Can we buy you some pitchers of beer? Cooper pulled out a wad of cash, straightening it in his hands. What do you want? A leather-clad, sleek man questioned. Well, first, I want to buy you some beer, but then we were wondering if we could ask you some questions. Cooper handed the money to his brother and pulled an empty chair out from the table. He turned it backward and straddled it, making himself comfortable. We're trying to find someone, and we were told that you might help. Cooper crossed his arms and rested them on the back of the chair. Maybe what you need is the police, a dark-haired girl purred. We're not in the missing persons department. She lifted her mug up to her face and licked the rim. Cooper gave the girl a half smile. Gage let out a huff, reaching into his back pocket. You know what? I'm just going to show you these pictures, and if you've ever seen these people, just give us a nod or something. Gage took out a photo given to him by Director Winters. It was the photo of a known associate of the vampire responsible for murdering their parents. It was the only lead they had. He flashed the photo around the table. None of them bothered to look at the picture. Maybe you should leave, the sleek man said, pushing himself a few inches back from the table. We haven't done anything, so I don't understand why you people won't leave us alone. You know what? Cooper said, shaking his head and putting his hands up. Doesn't have to be that way. Just give us an answer and we'll go. You'll just leave us? The girl asked, lacking the confidence from barely moments ago. Sheila, don't be crazy, the beefy man said back. They never just leave. The man gripped the table by the edge. Cooper eyed the man's grip. He knew what was coming. With a roaring grunt, the man launched the table at them. Cooper effortlessly slid out of his chair and out of the way. Gage dropped and rolled in the opposite direction. The table rocketed across the room and splintered against the wall with a thundering crack. The loud bunch sitting at the table were on Gage and Cooper in seconds.